I've had a no-show this afternoon, so and that happens in the ways of the world, you know. And we have such a waiting list. Sometimes people don't. They get tired or they decide something else. But so let's go over some of these questions that you have. So this is going to be question and answer number. I don't know what, but let's go over some of these things. And we did the sorry Cintron thing. Thank you, my friend. Sorry about all that. And then I did one on earlier on. I just want people to understand where everything is. Most of you already know this, but some people that visit the website don't understand kind of where traditional, and I don't want to use the word medicine, but traditional healing takes place. And around the world, you know, still around the world, traditionally, botanical medicine is the main focus. But we want to use herbs differently. We want to take herbs and we want to make them to clean the body out more aggressively, but we also want to use them to strengthen the body. So one of your questions has been on adaptogens, and you betcha I love adaptogens. Sometimes adaptogens are hot, like ginseng. So if you have prostatitis or you have a lot of acidosis, I don't recommend adaptogens right off because it just adds to the heat factor of the body. But I love adaptogenic herbs, very powerful on the tissue, and I really think plays a vital role in genetic remembering and the strengthening of cells. I love every herb from almost every walk of life, except maybe Peruvian bark, which is high quinine, and you know some of the more toxic things. I got into Cirrus, night blooming Cirrus, and it's like that's a little neurotoxic too. So there's some things I've been through that I really don't get into anymore. But adaptogenic herbs, you betcha. I mean, it strengthens the body up. I like cleansing the body first. Because of all the excessive heat and the acidosis of the body and all the damage and stuff, and then build it up. Because one I was just reading here was asking me about Cooley syndrome or blood disorders, and I'll find that and get to that. But when you're having hemoglobin and you're having daily or every week a new blood transfusion and you're not carrying oxygen and things, here's the thing. You get into your liver, you get into your spleen, you get into your adrenals, and you get into your bone marrow. Now, the question is, what herbs are good for the bone marrow? So, some probably not going to like this, but I do use antler a lot, especially in my ultimate immune, because antler, you don't hurt any deer or elk. It's part of the velvet antler, the growth period, but a major adaptogenic substance in the way of looking at it. Very powerful cellular regenerator. And I think good for bone marrow. I think the ginsengs are good for bone marrow as well. But I've got some good Chinese herbs for the bone marrow. But I would get into the bone marrow. I would detoxify my body for sure. Get that blood alkaline, get enzymes in that blood, as you know, because that'll start separating the blood cells so their carrying capacity will increase. Get the adrenals up because the relationship between iron and hemoglobin there is known. Clean the liver and the spleen. And as you go down this road, you'll correct this. I've had people that had no bone marrow left at all from taking pharmaceuticals, and they were on daily transfusions of blood, and then every 3 days platelets. You didn't mention platelets, but anyway, you've got to get into your bone marrow. Well, you know, you're into it's just going to take time to get into that bone marrow and rebuild that bone marrow and get into the adrenals. And same type of thing, though. You want to realize that it's still the lymph system, it's still the acids that started in your family chewing yourself down the road here. So really I would hit down that way. Now I've got a lot to cover here. I need your guys' help though. Now we're all detectives on the force of health. So I'm going to have you guys help me here. Now look, here's a lady, let's see, she's from India. Indian food. I love Indian food. But a lot of wheat and a lot of grains. And I'll say this, you know, I have a lot of Indian friends and a lot of GI tract problems, but I will say this. No matter what part of the world we're in and what we've done to survive in these lands, we need to bring the consciousness of fruits and berries and melons and salads and vegetables to the forefront now, no matter where we live, and bring that forth. We might have to grow some very large greenhouses, but we've got to do that, and pick from the sea, and we've got to do that. So you wrote that you had Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism, and you have vitiligo. Well, I suggest that your thyroid problem, in just these two things that you're fighting here, sweetheart, is pituitary. Pituitary is the skin pigmentation, and also it controls the thyroid. So before I would separate those two, I would definitely get in a glandular for the pituitary gland. Work on my bowels, because I can tell you, most of the time, and I've mentioned this on other videos, that most of the time when we see sinus and head and pituitary, we see colon. And the wheat products and the grains, they destroy the bowels. There's no question about it. And so you'll want to work on your GI tract, and you'll want to work on your pituitary gland. Probably take a pituitary glandular. That'll help quicker. That should turn on your thyroid. If you have a thyroid that's weak specifically, then you can get into the thyroid tincture of herbs, or you can get into a thyroid glandular. But the pituitary is going to control the thyroid. And both of those, my suggestion, are probably linked with you. Probably pretty easy call that way. So it's just, what, we're waking up the cultures, where they had through the generations. But this is why genetics are so in our face now in the younger people. And I believe you said you were a younger woman, right? And so, or male, but it's hitting us. It's hitting us hard now. And it's hitting us so hard we have to realize that, oops, our parents didn't know. They didn't know. Grains were always considered a staple. I don't know, where that really came from, because really they're not. I mean, we had farms. All my aunts and uncles had farms, and truly grains were considered more of a fattening agent for cattle and hogs. We never really over talked about it in ways of being a staple food. I think more people in the Midwest particularly got meat to be more of a staple, but really your fruits and berries and melons are the staple for Homo sapiens, and then maybe a salad on the side for whatever. But go into that body and clean it out. Hit your GI tract there, and get yourself cleaned up there, get the thyroid up there, and, excuse me, and get away from these grains. It'd be very important for your health to do that. So, Now, let's see here. Yeah, this is the one on the Cooley's anemia and stuff. Yeah. Go for that bone marrow too, my friend. Really important. Now, here's a good question here. This gentleman, this is Tim from the Netherlands. Hey, Tim from the Netherlands. You have a family history of balding, and you have a good set of hair. You've been on raw. Your hair's getting thick and stuff. If you'll see on some of these responses here, people are already getting their hair growth back. I've had people that have been bald since they were in their 20s, and they were 60 and 50 when I met them, and I've never failed to grow hair on their head again. I think when you look in genetics and balding, you're really looking in genetics of the lymph system, the inability to move lymph. And the quicker you see that, again, the colon's tied to that, the kidneys are tied to that. I think when you see that and you go after those areas and you use that upper circulation like you're doing, it might take you a while. Sometimes people grow hair quicker than others, but I'll tell you, I've never seen one not be able to grow hair on their head again. And matter of fact, I had a lady that she owned a big herb company. And she called me and she said she had T-cell lymphoma. And she was in trouble. So she owned an herb company, and that herb company made our herbal formulas. And I said, listen, honey, you got to get raw. And you got our herbal formulas, and then you got yours. So I really kind of excited her, and she really went into this, tore into this. They had the money so they could order from Diamond Organics out of California, and she really tore into this. Now, she had salt and pepper hair, and she told me one time, she said, my hair went from, gray and black to black, and then to blonde. She said, I had blonde hair as a child. So does it make you wonder? Do we really know some of the fascinating things that could take place in the human body? Fascinating stuff. We've accepted what we see, and I look at these lab normals and everything else, it's like, we don't know. So, pretty far out. I'll say this, what else you got to do on the planet right now? Take off after that body of yours and really hit it hard. Here's a big thing here, though, with this is that you're thin, cold hands and feet, because you get the thyroid there. You're thin, so are we dealing in malabsorption or pancreatic? Remember, you guys, when someone's thin, what, are they not absorbing their foods properly? Or do they have pancreatic? They're not digesting their foods. You can eliminate digesting by, do you see particles of food in your stools? Do you see particles of undigested food in your stools? If you do, except for corn, nobody digests corn, but particles of undigested food in your stool would be a direct indication more pancreatic, depending on the food. Pancreas digests your carbohydrates, fruits and veggies. You don't want to see fruit skins in your stool. Not good. And definitely vegetable either, but we would tend to see more vegetable than fruit skins because vegetables are much harder to digest. If you're seeing fats or fatty stuff, then your liver gallbladder's in trouble. Of course, that sort of thing. So, the most frequent problem with thinness is malabsorption. Now, that's going to go back to interstitial lymphatic constipation. You like that word? I think we should put it in the Webster's Dictionary. All right, interstitial lymphatic constipation. But how does that tie into balding? Because if you're having problems here, you're probably having problems in your whole family line of lymphatics. Isn't it cool that we can pull this back to the same thing every time? Because the only body is what? Bunch of cells and two fluids. We're keeping it general and keeping it simple. That's what I like. And when you can do that, you empower yourself, you can focus yourself. So I suggest your genetics is in your adrenals and your kidneys. You're not moving your lymph system. Now your guys' lymph system is backed up in the wall of the GI tract. You guys are getting malabsorbed from that. Of course, from that, the lymph system is taking off the hair and everything else. So work on all of that and work yourself out of that. Might take a little bit of a time, but that's okay. You can pop up that thyroid, but if your family is balding, you might have to suspect the pituitary here because that's up here. And when you go balding, what's taking off hair? When you see no hair, think chemotherapy. That's an easy way to relate to that. And of course, when you think of chemotherapy, think of acid. Hot acid. As nurses say, Drano acid. So that sort of acid, cellular acids are around 3 pH. Chemo's around 1.5 to 2. If they're using anything hotter nowadays, they used to use, I think, hotter, but you might ask your oncologist if you have one. I hope you don't. But if you have one, ask them the pH of any chemo you might be considering taking. A lot of cancer in the family, sugar problems. There you go. High blood pressure. What's sugar problems? Adrenal glands for the most part. All right. What's high blood pressure problems? Kidneys. Right there. Kidneys and adrenals. Guys, what problem are they having trouble with? That's right. The lymphatic system. Here's interstitial lymphatic constipation in the gut wall. He's thin. He's got suppressed thyroid. And he's got a family history of balding. Not him yet, but family history. So take off with that, guy.